Welcome to beautiful places in France. Today we're taking you deep into the south of France, to the heart of the Pyrenees, to a city whose name echoes through the ages, Foix. At first glance, it's a charming medieval town surrounded by breathtaking nature. But behind these walls lies a story of power, faith, and unbreakable resistance. Have you ever wondered how a castle could defy the most powerful armies of its time? Not just once, but time and time again. The Castle of Foix did just that. They called it the Impregnable Fortress, and its secret is forever linked to the fate of a persecuted people, the Cathars. The story of Foix is as old as the rock its castle stands on. Prehistoric people sought shelter here, but the city truly rose to power in the Middle Ages. In the year 1002, the Count of Carcassonne bequeathed the fortress to his son, who became the first Count of Foix. He founded a dynasty that would shape the destiny of this region for centuries. From here, the counts defended their independence, shaped the culture of Occitania, and offered protection to those cast out by the world. Join us on a journey through the streets of Foix. Listen to the stories the ancient stones have to tell, and discover with us why this small city is a giant of history. Our first stop is not the castle, but the spiritual heart of the city, which often stands in the fortress's shadow, the Abbey Church of Saint-Volusien. To understand it, we must look far back in time, to the era of Charlemagne. Here, on the banks of the Ariège River, originally stood a small oratory, but its importance grew dramatically when it received the relics of a special man, Saint Volusianus. Volusianus was an archbishop of Tours in the 5th century. Legend has it that he was persecuted by the Visigoths and driven into exile, where he eventually died. His remains were brought to Foix for safekeeping, and the small chapel grew into an abbey bearing his name. This act of salvation turned Foix into a major spiritual center and a destination for pilgrims. In the year 1104, the abbey underwent a profound transformation. Augustinian canons took over its leadership. They lived by a strict code, dedicating themselves to prayer and pastoral care. Under their guidance, the construction of a magnificent three-aisled Romanesque basilica began. Imagine it: massive stone walls, small rounded windows letting in slivers of light, and a feeling of earthy, fortress-like spirituality. Unfortunately, little remains of this original structure. The most impressive evidence is the main portal. Step closer and examine the fine details. Even though the sculptures have suffered over the centuries, you can still recognize the craftsmanship of the Romanesque stonemasons. The base of the nave walls also dates from this era. When you place your hand on the cool stone, you are touching almost 1,000 years of history. The great change came in the 14th century. Thanks to a generous donation from Count Roger Bernard III, the old dark choir was demolished and replaced with a new one in the southern French Gothic style. This style is very different from the cathedrals of northern France. Instead of extreme height and delicate flying buttresses, we find a very wide single nave that creates a sense of space and community. The polygonal choir, with its 9 elegant tall windows and surrounding chapels, floods the space with light, a deliberate contrast to the Romanesque past. But the story of Saint-Volusien is also one of destruction and rebirth. During the wars of religion in the 16th century, the church was stormed and set ablaze by Huguenots. The vault collapsed, the interior was destroyed, and the relics of Saint Volusianus, the very founding myth of the church, were lost forever in the flames. It took decades for Foix to recover from this blow. Reconstruction only began in 1609. It was a monumental undertaking that lasted nearly 70 years. The citizens and counts of Foix rebuilt their church, stone by stone. Today's vault is a masterpiece of that period, spanning the wide nave without any supporting columns. And then there is the music. The magnificent organ was built in 1869 by the renowned workshop of Leroy Legendre and Fermi. With its 40 stops and thousands of pipes, it is not just an instrument, but a cathedral of sound. Its tones range from gentle whispers to thundering jubilation. When played during a concert, it fills every corner of this historic space, seeming to summon the souls of all who have prayed, mourned, and celebrated here over the centuries. The Abbey of Saint-Volusien is thus a living monument, a place that tells of defeat and triumph, of faith, and of the indestructible power of new beginnings. And now, we lift our gaze to the landmark that dominates the city and its history, the Château de Foix. A crown of stone perched on a 60-meter-high rock as if challenging the very clouds. Its silhouette, with its 3 towers, is unmistakable and tells a story of bold architecture, legendary counts, and an epic struggle for the soul of southern France. An Occitan poet once wrote, "The castle is so strong, it defends itself." This was not mere poetry, but a military fact. Its position was perfectly chosen, on a steep limestone rock that drops almost vertically on 3 sides, controlling access to the upper Ariège Valley. Any attacker would face a murderous climb under constant fire from above. The architecture itself is a lesson in medieval warfare. The castle consists of 3 main parts from different eras. The oldest is the square tower, the Tour d'Arget, from the 11th century. It was the original keep, the last place of refuge. In the 12th century, the middle tower, the Tour Pointu, was added, strengthening the defenses. But the most famous feature is the massive round tower, the Tour Ronde, built only in the 15th century by one of Foix's most brilliant counts, Gaston Phébus. Its round shape offered less of a target for catapults and was the pinnacle of defensive technology at the time. But the castle's finest hour struck long before the round tower was built, in the early 13th century. During this time, a faith was spreading across Occitania, as southern France was then called, that the Catholic Church saw as a mortal threat: Catharism. The Cathars believed in 2 gods, a good spiritual God and an evil material God who had created the world. They rejected the Church's sacraments, the wealth of the clergy, and the worldly power of the Pope. Their priests, the perfecti, lived lives of strict asceticism. For many, this was an appealing alternative to an often corrupt official church. Pope Innocent III saw this as a heresy to be eradicated by any means necessary. In 1209, he called for the Albigensian Crusade, a massive army of northern French knights and German mercenaries, led by the ruthless Simon de Montfort, swept through the land pillaging and killing. In the midst of this storm of fire and steel, the county of Foix became a center of resistance. Its leader was Count Raymond-Roger, a complex and fascinating figure. He himself was a Catholic, yet his county was a haven of tolerance where Catholics, Cathars, and even Jews lived together peacefully. He was bound by an oath of loyalty to his vassals and his people, an oath he had no intention of breaking. His stance was reinforced by his family. His wife, Philippa, and especially his sister, Esclarmonde de Foix, were devout Cathars. Esclarmonde the Great, was an extraordinary woman, intelligent, eloquent, and a spiritual leader. In 1207, at the debate of Pamiers, she publicly confronted Catholic theologians, defending the Cathar faith with such passion that they tried to silence her. She became an icon of Occitan resistance. Simon de Montfort knew he could only break the resistance if he took Foix. In 1211, he marched his army to the gates of the city. When he saw the castle on its rock, he is said to have shouted, full of rage and frustration, "I will melt the rock like fat and roast the Lord inside it." The siege began. But the castle held. The steep cliffs made the use of heavy siege engines nearly impossible. The defenders, led by Raymond-Roger, fought with the courage of desperation. Simon de Montfort was forced to retreat in humiliation. He tried again in 1212, again without success. Raymond-Roger was not just a steadfast defender, but also a brilliant field commander. At the Battle of Montgai, he lured a German crusader army into an ambush and nearly annihilated it. The castle of Foix became a legend. It was the rock in the storm, the symbol that the power of the North was not invincible. But fate was against the Occitans. In 1213, their combined armies were crushed at the catastrophic Battle of Muret. Raymond-Roger had to submit and temporarily surrender his castle, though he soon got it back. He died in 1223, shortly before the end of the Crusade, without ever having lost his castle in battle. His successors continued the resistance. In 1272, even the French king, Philip the Bold, besieged the castle. Faced with overwhelming force, the count surrendered to spare his men. But again, the castle was not conquered. Its walls fell only once in its entire history, in 1486, not to weapons, but to betrayal. A century later, the castle experienced a new golden age under Count Gaston III, better known as Gaston Phoebus. Phoebus, who named himself after the Greek sun god Phoebus, was a dazzling figure, an athletic warrior, a shrewd politician, a great hunter, and a patron of the arts. His court at Orthez and Pau was one of the most magnificent in Europe, but it was in Foix that he built the Round Tower to demonstrate the power of his lineage. He authored the famous Book of the Hunt, a masterpiece of medieval literature. But he was also a man of fiery temper and terrifying cruelty. In a fit of rage, he even killed his own son. After Phoebus, the castle slowly lost its importance as a noble residence. It became a garrison and, above all, a feared prison. In the cells of the Round Tower, countless people suffered over the centuries. The once proud fortress of resistance became a place of suffering. It wasn't until the 19th century that its historical value was recognized and it was extensively restored. Today, the Château de Foix is more than just a ruin. It houses the fascinating Departmental Museum of Ariège. The modern museum concept brings history to life. Here, you can experience interactive exhibits that transport you to the daily life of a knight or the experience of a prisoner. You'll see prehistoric finds from the region's caves, Roman artifacts, and of course, an impressive collection of weapons and armor from the time of the counts. As you climb the steps to the towers today, you feel the touch of history with every step. And when you stand at the top, taking in the breathtaking view over the rooftops of Foix and the majestic Pyrenees, you understand. You understand the power of this place. It is the spirit of Raymond-Roger, of Esclarmonde, of all those who fought here for their freedom and their convictions. Foix is more than just a holiday destination. It's a lesson in history, reminding us of the importance of freedom, tolerance, and the courage to stand up for what you believe in.